Chosen ones, your acts of selflessness didn't just touch the earth, they shook the heavens. Every sacrifice, every moment you placed others before yourself, sent ripples through eternity that still echo in the spiritual realm. Though the world failed to see the magnitude of your offering, heaven stood in awe of your unwavering heart. You gave, you served, you poured yourself out, even when those around you dismissed your worth and treated you as ordinary. But God saw it all. Every overlooked moment, every unspoken prayer, every time you chose humility over recognition, it was never missed. Now the time has come. The God who treasures his chosen is moving on your behalf. Watch as the heavens respond, as justice unfolds, and as the divine hand lifts you up. Those who fail to honor what was sacred will now witness the glory of what God has always known. You were never common, you were his masterpiece. The spiritual realm, once shaken by your offering, now quakes with the weight of what is coming. Your sacrifices, though unseen by many, were never insignificant. They were seismic. Every time you chose to release what was toxic, you broke chains that had bound your lineage for generations. Each decision to stand in truth, no matter the cost, sent shockwaves through the unseen, loosening the grip of strongholds that once seemed unbreakable. Every silent battle, every moment you chose mercy over vengeance, shifted the very atmosphere around you. You weren't just enduring, you were waging war, dismantling cycles of pain, lack, and dysfunction that had plagued your bloodline. Now, heaven stands poised to respond, and those who underestimated the power of your obedience will soon realize they stood in the presence of someone whose sacrifices moved mountains in the spiritual realm. What was once hidden is about to be revealed, and the legacy you've built will echo for generations to come. The battles you endured were never just about survival, they were about paving the way for those who would walk after you. The enemy thought your pain would break you, that your silence would mean defeat, but instead, it became the foundation of your authority. In the hidden places, when no one saw the cost, you chose to rise. When obedience demanded everything, you gave without hesitation. Every tear, every sleepless night, every betrayal that could have hardened your heart, instead refined your spirit. What was meant to destroy you became the fire that forged you. Heaven watched as you turned wounds into wisdom, scars into strength, and suffering into a weapon. Now, you stand as proof that what was meant to crush you only made you unshakable, a warrior whose victory echoes far beyond yourself. Your quiet perseverance spoke louder than the loudest accusations, shaking the very foundations of the unseen. Every moment you endured in silence, heaven leaned closer, and the angels stood in awe of your unwavering faith. Each injustice, every sacrifice that seemed forgotten by the world, was etched into eternity, waiting for the perfect moment to tip the scales. Now the shift has begun, the ground beneath your feet is stirring, and the resistance you faced is revealing its true purpose. It wasn't proof of your weakness, it was confirmation of your power. The darkness that sought to crush you trembled at the potential of who you were becoming. What was meant to destroy you only strengthened your resolve, and now the light within you is breaking through, unstoppable and undeniable. Your pain carried purpose far beyond what you could see, and your sacrifice planted seeds that are now bursting forth with life. What once seemed lost is being restored, and what was broken is being rebuilt stronger than ever before. The chains that held your lineage captive for generations have been shattered, and freedom is flowing not just to you, but through you to those who will follow. Those who overlooked your struggles will soon stand in awe as the fullness of what your suffering achieved is revealed. The path has been cleared, the barriers have fallen, and the momentum of what's coming cannot be stopped. What was meant to break you has only prepared you for breakthrough, and now, the harvest of your endurance is ready to be unveiled. They misjudged you at every turn. Your silence, which they saw as surrender, was actually the stillness of someone rooted in unshakable strength. Your patience, mistaken for passivity, was the quiet confidence of someone waiting for the perfect moment. Your humility, which they dismissed as weakness, was a weapon sharper than any sword. They mocked what they could not understand: your kindness, your endurance, your unwavering spirit. All of it was heaven's strategy, not yours. They thought they could manipulate you, discard you, control you, but they failed to see the divine hand upon your life. What they mistook for fragility was actually the mark of someone chosen, someone unstoppable, someone who would rise beyond their comprehension. Heaven always knew who you were, even when the world didn't. The darkness threw everything it had at you: betrayal to wound your heart, rejection to silence your voice, and loss to shake your foundation. Every attack was meticulously planned. Every blow meant to shatter your spirit and make you abandon your purpose before it could bloom. But they failed to see the fire within you, a fire that could not be extinguished. They underestimated your resilience, your faith, and the strength that grows in silence and suffering. What they intended to destroy you only refined you, and now, the very forces that sought your downfall tremble at the realization of who you've become. You are unstoppable, forged in the fire they thought would consume you. You stood unshaken, refusing to let the weight of bitterness take root in your heart. Instead, you allowed the fire to purify you, transforming every scar into a source of strength. Each wound became a wellspring of wisdom, each rejection a tool to sharpen your vision, and every setback a stepping stone to greater purpose. They thought they had silenced you, buried you beneath the weight of their schemes, but they didn't realize they had sown a seed. The soil they meant for your destruction became the ground from which you would rise. Their attempts to break you only deepened your resilience, and the pain they inflicted became the fuel for your unstoppable ascent. What was meant to crush you has only crowned you, and now nothing can hold back the power that has been forged within you. They underestimated you at every turn, blinded by their own arrogance and deceived by their fleeting sense of control. They thought their schemes would go unnoticed, that their actions would carry no weight, but they failed to see the unseen forces at work. Heaven was watching, keeping record of every injustice, every silent sacrifice, and with each one, the scales began to shift. The same hands that tried to push you down will now reach out in desperation, but they will find no grip. The tables they once ruled over have turned, and the seats they once claimed will now remain empty. Their pride blinded them to the truth, their manipulation fooled only themselves, and now they stand unprepared for the reckoning that has arrived. What they never saw coming is now unfolding before their eyes, and there is no denying the power of the one they tried to diminish. The time of unveiling has come. Those who were overlooked, underestimated, and cast aside are about to step into the light, their worth undeniable, and their purpose unstoppable. Heaven was never indifferent. Every tear you shed, every silent battle you fought, was seen and recorded by the Eternal. The moments you chose grace over vengeance, faith over despair, and righteousness over resentment echoed far beyond what you could see. You thought you were forgotten, abandoned in your pain, but all along, divine forces were working behind the scenes, aligning every trial for your triumph. What was done in the shadows is now being brought into the light, and the elevation you are stepping into will leave no doubt that heaven had its hand on you all along. The moment you chose selflessness over comfort, the heavens took notice. Angels stood guard, witnessing the sacrifices you made, the pain you endured, and the silent battles you fought with unwavering strength. They saw the weight of the burdens you carried, the tears you never let fall, and the times you gave your all for others, even when it left you empty. Every act of love, every choice to rise above, was etched into eternity. Declarations of honor were spoken in the spiritual realm, and decrees of favor and restoration were written in your name. What you gave in silence is now resounding in the heavens, and the seeds you sowed in sacrifice are preparing to bloom into a harvest beyond anything you could imagine. Every sacrifice you made became a testimony before the throne of heaven, a sacred offering that could not be ignored. Justice began to stir, set in motion by the very pain the enemy thought would break you. He mistook your silence for surrender, your suffering for defeat. But he underestimated the power of divine law. Every insult, every betrayal, every attempt to dishonor or destroy you only added weight to the case being built in your favor. Your obedience became a currency of immeasurable value, your tears a language heaven understood, and your unwavering choice to walk in light over darkness laid the foundation for a victory no one can take from you. What the enemy meant for harm has only solidified the blessings that are now on their way, unstoppable and undeniable. Your pain was never meaningless. Every wound, every loss, every injustice has been measured with precision by the hands of eternity. What was stolen from you has been noted, and heaven's justice has already begun to move. The spiritual realm has shifted in response to your endurance, and what is coming cannot be stopped. Some will see it as fate, others as karma, but the reality is far greater. It is divine retribution, born not from your vengeance, but from the unchanging and perfect law of the kingdom. What you endured has paved the way for restoration, and the scales are now tipping in your favor. The response is not yours to carry, but the victory is yours to receive. What was hidden in the shadows is about to be brought into the open, every scheme and secret plan laid bare under the brilliance of truth. The lies spoken behind closed doors, the betrayals whispered in the dark, will no longer remain concealed. Heaven has spoken, and the ruling is final. Justice is yours. The decree has been issued, and the heavens are moving on your behalf. Now, stand firm and watch as the truth unfolds, as the plans meant to harm you unravel, and as the favor of God turns everything in your favor. What happens next will leave no doubt that divine power has been at work all along. But even in the moments when you almost gave up, when the weight of it all felt unbearable, something deep within you refused to let go. The betrayal cut deep, the rejection left scars, and the endless giving with nothing in return drained you to the core. You loved with everything you had, only to be met with cold indifference. You poured out your soul, only to find yourself empty, questioning the very foundation of your faith. Why did God allow this? Why did his silence echo so loudly in your suffering? Why did those who wronged you seem to thrive while you struggled just to survive? Yet, even in your doubt, even in your brokenness, there was a flicker of hope, a quiet whisper reminding you that this pain was not the end, that the story wasn't over, and that somehow, some way, all of this would matter. Heaven seemed out of reach. Your prayers felt like they fell into an empty void, and your cries for help were met with nothing but silence. You felt invisible, cast aside, as if even God had turned his face from you. Yet, in the depths of your despair, a spark within you refused to die. Though the world tried to crush you, though the enemy sought to silence your voice, though the weight of your trials threatened to extinguish your faith, you held on. You endured when the pain was unbearable, you remained faithful when there was no evidence of hope, and you pressed forward when every part of you wanted to give up. Even with a broken heart, you still chose righteousness, still chose light over darkness. And in that unwavering choice, in that steadfast faith, the heavens began to move. That's when everything changed. The spiritual realm could no longer remain silent in the face of your sacrifice. What once felt like unending pain had fulfilled its purpose, refining you in ways you couldn't yet see. The breaking point was never your end. It was the threshold to something greater, a doorway to divine restoration. Your unwavering endurance became the catalyst for heaven's response, shaking the very foundations of the unseen. The pain that nearly broke you became the very reason for your rise. The suffering that left you shattered became the undeniable proof that justice was due. Every tear you cried was counted. Every moment of agony was seen, and God, who never forgets, had already written your redemption into the story. Now, the very trials meant to destroy you have become the platform for your elevation. Heaven took note of every tear you shed, every battle you fought in silence, and every step you took when the weight of it all threatened to break you. Every moment of endurance, every time you chose grace over retaliation, was seen and recorded. What once broke you will now build you. What once scarred you will now become your strength. The pain that felt like your undoing was actually preparing you for your unveiling. Everything has shifted. The suffering that once silenced you has now spoken on your behalf, and heaven has responded. The tables are turning, and the very ones who overlooked, underestimated, or mistreated you will soon see the fullness of who you were destined to be. What once seemed like the end was always the foundation for your rise. And now, let us honor the fire that burns within the chosen ones, their courage, their vision, and their unyielding spirit. Here's to those who walk a road few dare to travel, who embrace the weight of their calling with grace, knowing that their journey is not just for themselves, but for the countless lives they will touch. They endure doubt and face resistance, yet they press forward, understanding that greatness is often misunderstood by those who fear it. Here's to the chosen ones who rise after every fall, who transform pain into power and trials into triumphs. Their strength lies not only in their actions, but in the quiet moments of faith when they choose to believe in the unseen. To those who stand firm, not for applause, but because their soul knows the truth of their purpose. Chosen ones, remember this: your light is not ordinary, it is divine, infinite, and unstoppable. This is your reminder that you are never alone, that you are part of a sacred family of warriors who see the world not as it is, but as it could be. Declare it with certainty: I am a chosen one, and I will not be shaken by the storms of doubt or fear. Together we rise, not just for victory in the world, but for triumph over the shadows within. For to lead others, we must first conquer ourselves. Stay steadfast, stay radiant, and never forget, you are the light the world has been waiting for. Shine boldly, for your time is now. If you feel this calling deep within your soul, don't let it end here. Subscribe now to join a community of like-minded warriors, receive empowering messages, and unlock your full potential. Together, we'll rise, shine, and change the world. Your journey starts here. Hit subscribe and take the first step toward your destiny. God witnessed it all: the silent battles you fought, the moments you chose patience over anger, truth over convenience, and sacrifice over selfishness. Every tear, every unanswered prayer, every step you took in faith when the path was unclear, none of it was overlooked. You grew tired, wondering if your goodness was in vain, as you watched others take shortcuts and thrive while you struggled in the shadows. But what felt like silence was preparation, and what seemed like delay was divine timing. God was not ignoring you. He was aligning everything for something far greater than you could imagine. He was weaving every trial, every sacrifice, and every act of faith into a masterpiece of justice and purpose. Trust that nothing was wasted, and the reward will be worth the wait. Keep going. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. And now, the tides are turning. The first glimpses of justice are breaking through. Those who dismissed you, who underestimated your worth, are beginning to feel the weight of their actions. The ones who hurt you are stumbling in confusion, their plans unraveling before their eyes. The balance is shifting, and the scales are being set right. Doors that once seemed permanently shut are now swinging open, and blessings that felt out of reach are finally finding their way to you. The battles you once faced in isolation are now being fought on your behalf by forces far greater than you. This is not by your hand, but by a higher power at work, a fulfillment of the eternal law that ensures righteousness is rewarded and wrongdoing meets its reckoning. Stand still, for you are witnessing the unfolding of divine justice, a season of restoration and triumph that has only just begun. Galatians 6:9 was not merely a promise, it was a declaration of truth etched into eternity. Do not grow weary in doing good, it said, and now that truth is unfolding before your eyes. Your season has arrived, the harvest is here, unstoppable and undeniable. Every seed of kindness, perseverance, and faith you planted in tears is now breaking through the soil, flourishing in ways you never imagined. The repayment has begun, ordained by a justice no one can overturn. Those who overlooked you are coming to terms with their error, but the time for their redemption has passed. God is not mocked. What was sown in deceit will reap its due, and what was sown in righteousness will rise in glory. The voices that spoke against you are falling silent as your light grows too bright to ignore. Everything is falling into place, every delay is making sense, and every closed door is now swinging wide open. This is your moment. Walk boldly into it, for it was always yours. Your perseverance has opened the floodgates of a breakthrough that no force can hinder. Every tear, every trial, every moment you chose to stand firm in faith was not in vain. It was the price for a blessing so secure, so abundant, that no one can take it away. Your steadfastness has set divine motion into play, and now the tables are turning. Watch closely, for this is just the dawn of what's to come. The balance of power is shifting. Those who once seemed untouchable are faltering, their confidence crumbling under the weight of their own actions. The voices that ridiculed you have grown quiet, and the ones who laughed at your pain are now wrestling with their own storms. What was meant to harm you is being transformed into your elevation. This is the beginning of a season where justice reigns, and your faith is rewarded beyond measure. They never anticipated the shift. They thought their actions would remain without consequence, that their power was permanent, and that your kindness was weakness they could exploit endlessly. But heaven was never blind to their schemes. God, in His wisdom, allowed them to move unchecked for a season, giving them the illusion of control. He watched as they manipulated, lied, and took advantage, all the while preparing a reckoning they could not escape. Now their time has run out. The traps they laid for you have become their own snare. The doors they slammed in your face are now closing on them, and the pain they so carelessly inflicted is returning to them in full measure. Justice is unfolding, and the scales are being balanced. What they thought was their triumph has become their downfall, and what they meant for harm is now working in your favor. This is not chance, it is divine justice in motion. The spiritual order demanded restoration. What was taken from you is being returned sevenfold. What was shattered is being made whole, and what was ignored is now being exalted. No one outruns the reach of divine law. They misunderstood your silence, misjudged your restraint, and labeled your grace as weakness. They thought your refusal to retaliate was permission to continue, but they failed to see the power in your patience and the strength in your humility. Now, God's justice is unfolding in ways they could never have foreseen. The tables are turning, not by human hands, but by a higher power that never forgets, never overlooks, and never fails to set things right. Their schemes are falling apart, their arrogance is fading, and the control they once clung to is slipping away like sand through their fingers. What was built on lies is collapsing, what was gained through deceit is disintegrating, and what they thought was unshakable is now crumbling into nothingness. This is not your battle, nor your vengeance. This is God's answer. You didn't need to lift a finger, defend your name, or demand recognition. Your worth was never in question, and your silence was never weakness. God has been working behind the scenes, orchestrating justice in ways they never saw coming. Now, as their plans unravel, your victory is becoming clear, not by your hand, but by His. The ones who dismissed you will soon see the truth, the ones who overlooked you will soon feel the weight of their mistake, and the ones who hurt you will wish they had chosen differently. The tide has shifted, and what once seemed like your end was only the beginning of something greater. Every trial shaped you, every obstacle strengthened your resolve, and every betrayal purified your purpose. The tears you shed were not wasted, they nourished the foundation of your growth. What they called your downfall was actually your preparation. They thought you were defeated, broken beyond repair, but they couldn't see what was happening beneath the surface. Now, you are rising, not as the person they once knew, but as someone renewed, someone unstoppable, someone they never expected. The pain you endured became your strength, and the challenges refined you into something unbreakable. Despite losses, what's being restored will surpass them. Your light and voice, once suppressed, are now unstoppable, shining with purpose and power. Those who underestimated or betrayed you now see their mistake, but your rise isn't about revenge, it's about fulfilling your true purpose. Your journey is a testament to resilience and alignment with something greater. Everything taken from you is coming back multiplied, everything withheld is being released in perfect timing, and everything shattered is being rebuilt with unshakable strength. You are stepping into a new season of power and purpose. What once intimidated you now trembles at your presence. What once restrained you has lost its grip, and what once kept you in the shadows can no longer dim your light. They tried to break you, but instead they forged your resilience. They tried to silence you, but instead they gave rise to a voice that carries farther than ever. They tried to bury you, but instead they unknowingly planted the seeds of your growth in the richest soil. Now you are rising, not just restored, but transformed, unstoppable, and undeniable. The season of being unseen has ended. God is positioning you exactly where you were always meant to be. No human hand can interfere, no opposition can hinder, and no power can reverse what has already been ordained. Every tear, every trial, every moment of waiting was not in vain. Your perseverance has been noticed, your faith has been honored, and your destiny was never in doubt. Now, the unveiling begins, and the world will witness the fulfillment of what was always promised. This is your time. They thought their actions would have no consequences. They took your generosity for granted, mistaking your kindness for weakness. They walked away without remorse, assuming you would always remain, always giving, always forgiving. But the season of their comfort has ended. What they built on lies is crumbling beneath them, and what they gained through deceit is slipping through their fingers like sand. The very things they took from you are now becoming their greatest burden, costing them more than they ever anticipated. They can't stop the unraveling, and they're left confused as doors shut in their faces and their plans fall apart. Only now, as the weight of their choices bears down on them, do they begin to understand, but by the time they realize, it's far too late. The very ones who cast you aside are now longing for your presence. The ones who laughed at your struggles are now speaking your name with reverence. The ones who overlooked you are now seeking your attention, but the door they once took for granted is now closed. They thought you would always remain in waiting, that they could return whenever it was convenient for them, that time was on their side. But they were mistaken. God's hand is at work, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but to bring about divine justice. What was once overlooked is now undeniable, and what they failed to value is now out of their reach. What was done in the shadows is now coming to light. The falsehoods they built are crumbling, and the facades they hid behind are shattering. They are facing the harvest of their own actions, not because you desired it, not because you sought to retaliate, but because the truth cannot be silenced, and divine justice cannot be evaded. They believed they could harm you without accountability, erase you without consequence, and rewrite the story to suit their narrative. But truth has a way of rising, and justice has a way of prevailing. This is not your battle to fight, nor your burden to carry. Their reckoning is not your responsibility. It is a matter between them and the one who sees all.